Hello and welcome to the 30-minute video game review, where I find a friend to wallow in misery with me for a few minutes while we talk about the recent video game that has caught our limited attention span. This week we're talking about Last of Us. My name's Ed. Joining me is Parker. You ready for this, man?
I guess so.
This is our first one. It's going to be kind of really bad, actually. It's really bad.
Horrible.
Yeah. Alright, so I guess we'll just start off with the game. The game's is the most recent addition to the Naughty Dog franchise, following along in the path of Crash Bandicoot on the PlayStation 1, the Jack and Daxter series on the PlayStation 2, and Uncharted series on the PlayStation 3. So I guess we'll just go ahead and get going. So overall, how do you feel about Naughty Dog games in general? I mean, this is my first one actually. So
really? Okay.
Yeah.
I like them. I haven't played it that many. I played Crash Bandicoot when I was really little, so my opinion on that is obviously a little tilted.
Yeah.
I've played through the first Uncharted and I really enjoyed that, and I'm about halfway through with the second one, though I'm not currently playing it, and that's even better than the first one. And this is just another addition. They've all been really, really amazing games.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, I played Crash Bandicoot a little bit as a kid, but not like I never had as we'll go later, I've never had a PlayStation of any kind, so like...
That's right.
When we're talking about the Crash Bandicoot series, I played it like at a friend's house or something like that, but never actually like sat down and actually played it. And the Uncharted games, everything I've heard about it is just like, Uncharted 1 is good, Uncharted 2 is better, Uncharted 3 is kind of like the same as Uncharted 2, so... The Last of Us, this is a completely different kind of gaming experience from what Naughty Dog's ever done before. I mean, Crash Bandicoot and Jack are both like these fantasy worlds, and The Last of Us is more post-apocalyptic. So I guess just what in general did you like about the game?
About Last of Us?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. Just everything about it was really good. It was nice to see a well-done post-apocalyptic zombie game, because they've kind of been beaten to death recently.
Yeah.
So the take on it was really solid.
Yeah, I mean, the whole trope of let's talk about the people, not really the zombies that much, is tried and true. I mean, Walking Dead's obviously the most recent example of that. But I think that they did something different in the infection part of the story with the zombies, instead of like it being like some kind of virus. I mean, the end all be all is that it's exactly the same. I mean, you have these zombies that go crazy and they try to eat people or whatever, but the fact that they had this like progression of this fungus basically, and they went from runners to stalkers to clickers and then finally to the bloaters, is just like, it's a nice little progression, and I think it's a nice new take on the zombie trope itself.
I would agree. I also actually really liked how they didn't make it seem like you were literally the only people left on the planet, which is what a lot of other ones have seemed to have done. Mm-hmm. They had like there were cities and like normal people were living there still trying to like avoid the infection.
Yeah, but they didn't go away from the fact that the population is so much lower than it was when the game started. I mean, the game starts at present day 2013, and then the actual real part of the game is 20 years later, and there's parts where you go into these cities and basically they're completely abandoned, and you see quarantine zones. I mean, one of the things towards the end of the game is you go into the side of this quarantine zone, and there's like another abandoned quarantine zone. Like, what's going on here, you know?
Yeah.
For me, the thing I really liked the most about the game was even going about the story. I mean, I think the characterization of everyone was like really good. I mean, I felt like the whole time with Ellie that I felt like really felt for her at certain points. I'm a softie for anything that involves kids, really, because like I feel for these children that are in this kind of like terrible situation, you know?
Yeah, and she kept saying things like, there was a point in the game where she found like some girl's diary, some like teenager's diary, and she was reading through it. She was like, boys and movies? Is this really all they had to worry about back then?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you obviously see throughout the whole game that, I mean, she's 14 years old. The outbreak started at 20, so the outbreak had already been gone for 6 years before she was born. So when you're walking around these cities or whatever, and you see these remnants of the past culture, like you go inside a coffee shop, and she's like, "What is this?" And Joel goes, "It's a coffee shop. Like, people used to go here." It's like, "Yeah, this is what we used to do." It's like, why? It's just like,
yeah, exactly.
She doesn't understand the culture difference between.
She literally has no idea what it's
like.
like.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you can imagine, those kinds of things are like, that's totally how someone would react in those kinds of situations. I mean, I think it really speaks to the writing of this game, that not only the animators are able to put on this kind of emotional baggage that all these characters have and make the player really feel for it, but also the writing in general makes the characters feel really real.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
I mean, that's pretty much it. So we can move on. Well, what did you not like about the game? For me, it was like so this is one of the things that I've heard a lot of people complain about. Is like Ellie, when you're in an encounter, I guess like they call it encounters. Ellie can run around and go up next to a person, and they'll just be like, "Oh, this is just some random girl that we're looking for," but she's probably nothing. It's fine. Like, they just completely ignore her, and they ignore a lot of other people when you play with other characters later. And I mean, I feel like I understand why they did it. I mean, I read an interview from Naughty Dog that basically said that they didn't want to have those people affected, because if something messed up, you would just get ultimately frustrated. But it does bring me out of the experience of the game where they're like, "Where is this girl? We're going after them," and
she's literally standing
and she's
in the middle of the
like
room.
right there, you know. But
yeah, I mean, that was a thing that I noticed a lot. Was like, I was always like hiding behind something, like, "Shh, quiet down," and she'd be like, "Okay," and then she'd like run over to the next like set of couches that she had to hide behind.
Yep.
While people were just looking at her.
And that was the thing in general about the sound stuff, because every time I went to go choke someone out and they would make like all this noise, I'd be like, "Shut up, I'm trying to kill you right now. Why are you making all this noise? There's another guy right there. If you make too much noise, then you'll attract them." So like, even like when you're supposed to shiv someone, that was like the silent kill or whatever. I'm doing air quotes. Like that, even that was like, you stabbed them, and then they're like, and then like that was way too loud for my liking. I mean, I had my headset on, and it's like I was like, "I'm gonna alert the other clicker that's like right there or whatever." But like, there's this one scene towards the end of the game where you have 3 military guys run past you, and they're like, let's check out the area or whatever. And I was like, all right, I'm not just gonna let them go. So I went back, and they're all standing like really, really close to each other. And I go up behind one, grab them, shiv them. I go behind the next, grab them, and shiv them. and like they're like 2 feet away. And if I heard someone behind me go, you know, like I would turn around, for God's sake, you know. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean that was my big complaint was really the fact that you have these characters that you're supposed to really care about, but in the end, in the encounters, they're like just like doesn't matter at all.
Yeah. One thing that kind of bugged me about the whole game, like, it didn't bug me, that's the wrong thing to say. It was more like I wanted so badly to continue with the story that I got really frustrated on some of the encounters when they were a little bit harder than I was expecting them to be. Mm-hmm. Like, I was just playing through on normal, and I found myself getting really angry with the combat because I was like, I want to get done with this so I can keep going and like move on.
Yeah, and that was the thing for me too, because like, I mean, it's a stealth game, so like they want you to be, well, it's kind of a stealth game. It's an action adventure game, but they want you to be kind of stealthy at some points, especially with like the clickers running around and stuff like that.
Because you only have like limited ammo. Like when they say limited ammo, it's like legitimately.
So like you get to these points where you're like, I want to continue on to the story. I want to figure out what's happening next, but all these zombies or people are in my way. So there was this one point in the hotel where there's just so many people everywhere that I got bored of trying to find them all and going to different levels and trying to find them all. So at one point I got seen, I like ran off, and I turned around and the guy was following me, and he came up and I just shot him because I was just tired of him following me. And then of course everyone in the whole hotel is like, look, in this one corner of the hotel we just heard a gunshot and we know exactly which room they're in, so we're going to go over there. So then I just ended up having to just use my gun to kill them all. But But one thing about the gun stuff is like headshots one hit kill, but if someone has a helmet on,
Oh god,
you have
that
to
was
shoot
so
off the helmet.
infuriating.
Yeah.
That was infuriating. 'Cause I would nail the headshot so many times, and I'd be like, yes! And then he would poke his head back up like a damn idiot. And I was like, no! You had a helmet on!
I mean, we were talking about this yesterday, but the bow and arrow was something that like I felt was really satisfying because like you would, if you weren't in combat, you told me this. If you weren't in combat, then it was a one-hit kill. So the few times where I thought I was out of combat, but I was in combat according to the game, and I shoot the person, you just stand right back up. I was like, "What? I just got you. What? You need to be down on the ground right now." And then of course, like they would know where you are because of the direction of the arrow or whatever. But the great thing about the bow and arrow is occasionally, if you killed someone, that it wouldn't break. So you'd just run over there and grab the arrow real quick.
I found myself using the bow and arrow a lot towards the end.
Yeah, I didn't use it at first because I didn't really understand like the significance of it. But then, like towards the end, when Ellie has the bow and arrow, this is maybe a little spoiler, but when you're playing as Ellie and she has the bow and arrow, and that's pretty much all she has, like then I started realizing that how good it was, you know? Yeah.
And after all this being said, I still love the combat system.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like it was really fluid. Like even the melee was really fluid, and it felt really good satisfying to do. And like the guns and just everything about it was actually really, really well done.
And I'm surprised. I'm really happy to see that it didn't suffer from Assassin's Creed syndrome, which is what I call when you have like a bunch of enemies surrounding you, but only one guy comes and attacks you at a time.
Yeah.
Because
that's right.
There were times when I was beating away at this other guy, and another guy comes up behind me and grabs me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Excuse me, I would like to beat the crap out of your friend here. Can you just leave me alone for a little bit, you know?"
And they're like, "No, I can't do that. I'm sorry."
And that's great, and I love that because that was one of my big complaints about Assassin's Creed is like you would be in combat and like
they just circle around.
They would circle around you, and then like a little thing would pop over their head, and they're like, "I'm about to attack you right now." And I think Assassin's Creed 3 did a little bit better than that because they didn't have like an on-screen indicator as much, but still I still find Assassin's Creed combat a little jarring at times.
There was even that mechanic in The Last of Us that if you got like surrounded and started getting beaten on, you would like crouch down and sprint to get out of it.
And you would keep trying to hit the square button, trying to melee or whatever, and like it took you a second. Like at the beginning of the game, they would prompt you and saying like sprint to get away or whatever. Yeah. But even at the end of the game, I it didn't quite get into the fact that I could sprint to get away. So I would keep trying to hit triangle or square, and I would crouch down or whatever, and then I'd be like, "Oh crap, I have to run away." So I would do it. I would get up and sprint and run away. But it's really cool to like that idea that the combat was really realistic at points where the gunshots were. I mean, you could upgrade it later, but the weapon sway was like I felt like that was realistic. The melee combat was realistic. I felt the combat in general was really, really realistic. I just had some trouble with some of the stealth elements and stuff like that we talked about before.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you feel like the best moment in the game in general?
Well, spoiler alert. Right near the very end of the game, I felt my personal favorite moment of the game was in the final fight that you're having with David. Mm-hmm. When you're in the burning building. It's a restaurant, I think, some sort of like Shoney's or something. I don't know. It's like one of those just restaurants that like, anyway, you're in there and he's looking for you and you're playing as Ellie and you have to kill him before he kills you. And so what it is it's like typical boss battle type thing. You have to kill him. You have to get him 3 times because that's just the magic number. So the first 2 times you're like, you're this little girl obviously, and he's this grown ass man with a machete, and like, he's just like walking around like taunting you. Like, oh, it would be so much better with me if you just left Joel behind, and all these things. And then, like, you stab him twice, and then he shuts up and, like, crouches down and starts hunting around for you. And the first time that I got to that point, and he, like, snuck up behind me because I wasn't expecting it at all, I jumped so hard. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and that encounter was really cool because you go inside that building, and you see all these plates on the ground, and you keep stepping on them, and they keep making noises, and you're expecting, like, at any point for, like, one of the people to, like, come into the building and take up their defensive positions or whatever. And then, like, you're expecting the plates to be, like, some integral part of that. I didn't quite realize that, this is a boss battle.
Yeah.
You know? And the 3 hits to kill thing is what I call the magic Nintendo number. Because
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. For me, my favorite moment was, it's kind of early in the game. It's when you're in the hotel, and you get to the very top of the hotel, and then you get onto this elevator, and Joel jumps down on the elevator, and he's like it starts like kind of being kind of rickety, but not too bad. And then Ellie jumps on it, and it like really creaks, and you're like, the whole time I was like, oh my gosh, this thing's gonna fall. And so I you boost up Ellie, and at this point I was like, all right, maybe we'll get past. See, so they pulled like a double take on me. And then the thing falls, and I'm like, oh crap. And of course, you're in the basement, and then the spores come around, so you put on the mask. And you're walking around exploring this area, and you're not encountering any enemies at all, but you're seeing like things run in the shadows and stuff like that. And it was so it was really like creepy, and it had a nice like feel to it. And then you go up to this generator, and I walked to the generator. I was like, oh my gosh! The second I turn this on, everyone's gonna be so pissed at me. And so I turn it on. And before I even pull it once, a stalker comes up and like grabs onto me, and I was like, ah! So that freaked me out a little bit. And then when I killed him and I turned it on, then the bloater comes down the stairs, and this is the second time you've encountered a bloater, and you're in this really really tight area. There's these generator like electrical things like right in front of you, so you don't really have that much room to maneuver around. And so I didn't even expect it. He comes down the stairs, and I was like, and then he like comes out, and he does the little animation where he grabs your face and like rips it apart or whatever. Yeah, but that was definitely my favorite thing about the game.
Yeah.
We already talked about a little bit of the gameplay and the AI. So for me, I mentioned earlier that I've never owned a PlayStation of any kind. So this is my first PlayStation, the first time playing any kind of PlayStation game. So I have quite the back catalog to get into, as you've mentioned to me a few times. But so I bought the PlayStation with Last of Us and the Uncharted trilogy for $350. And so I felt like that was worth it, and I heard so many great things about not just the Uncharted series, but Last of Us in general, that I felt like it was a good decision for me. And I felt like definitely, if not Last of Us, then once I start playing Uncharted and all the other franchises that I've missed out, being playing Nintendo when I was younger and having an Xbox 360, that I felt like it definitely is worth the price. I mean, it's sitting here right next to me, and after we finish this, I'm going to go play something. I'll figure something out, yeah. But yeah, so I guess we can go into real spoilers and talk about the ending. I mean, for me, the ending was... I didn't like it. I mean...
I didn't either.
I like the end. It's weird conflicting, because I felt like it was a good ending, but I didn't like what happened. You know?
Yeah. Can we just go ahead and say complete spoilers and actually talk about specifics?
Spoiler alert, and we'll just end it off with this, so that you can stop listening now if you don't want to be spoiled. But yeah.
Yeah. So right at the end, when you're in the hospital with Ellie's not near you, and you've been told by, what's her name?
Marlene, I think.
Marlene, you're right. It totally is.
Yeah.
Marlene is telling you that like she's going to die.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, up until this point, Joel has been slowly going batshit insane.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even remember specifically what he does. Oh, right, he, like, completely tortures those two guys.
Yeah, that was the thing where really he went over the cusp for me, because before, when you were in the Colorado, like, university or whatever, like, everything seemed like normal, and you're walking through, and, I mean, as the player, you're being depressed because you're not seeing any sign of any life at all. And then all of a sudden those guys attack you, and you find out later that those are the guys that David, they're like David's men or whatever.
Yeah. Like, he tortures, like, stabs that guy in the kneecap.
Yep.
And then asks him where Ellie is. and then he gets an answer and kills him.
Yep.
And then he goes over to the other guy and does pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, and he's like, he told you what you wanted, and he's like, and he's like, and Joel says, I believe him, and then he just shoots the other guy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely really harsh.
And that wasn't even the only part, and like he just like slowly, like not even slowly, he like real fast goes crazy over Ellie.
Yeah.
And like the thing that kind of bugged me about that was that like not like 3 hours of gameplay earlier, he was completely thinking about leaving her behind with his brother.
Yeah, exactly. It was such a quick switch.
A fast turnaround.
Yeah, and like, and he goes like, "You're not my daughter" or whatever, and I'm not your father.
Yeah.
And then like literally an hour later, or an hour or two later,
he's killed 3 people just for the sole purpose of finding out where she is.
Yeah, exactly.
So like that kind of bugged me.
Yeah,
but
it also that part also bugged me because like that was when like that was right around the time where she's stuck in the burning building. She passed out in the burning building. And so you go back to playing Joel, and you're running, and I basically run, and I realize, oh, I have to go kill some people because there's some people here, and it was so conflicting to me.
One thing that I really liked about that part, right after, like during that, I don't remember exactly when it was, but during that whole ending sequence, was like right when you get control of Joel back, and when he's in the house, and like you just get the control of him back, and he's still like really injured.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed this, but people were not fighting you. They were running away from you. Did you notice that?
No.
Like when you got to the point where like you come out of the house, people are afraid of you because of how many people you've killed.
Oh yeah, and they were
like,
saying
nobody
that
wanted to fight you. Like they would turn around and like fire a few shots, and so you had to kill some of them. But like most of them tried to run away, and like I didn't have to fight. I only killed like 2 people during that part.
Yep.
Whereas I swear there were like 15 or 20 of them. Because they were like downright afraid of you, which I think is a really cool like just
transition to they
yeah.
knew what kind of person you have become or whatever. Yeah. Speaking of which, Molotov cocktails, the coolest thing ever. when at the end when you're in that sewer and you face the last couple bloaters or whatever, along with a couple clickers and runners.
I didn't even kill them. I snuck past.
Okay, well, I killed them, and I threw a Molotov cocktail at one of the bloaters, and he got like all angry, so everyone like swarmed him, and then I just threw another one and killed everyone. It was the greatest. But yeah, so we already kind of mentioned about Joel's decline, but that when he's that soldier that's escorting him out, and he like sticks it basically in the guy's groin and shoots. Ooh, that was
that's right.
That was rough.
Yeah, he was like, I don't have time for this.
And so he shoots him, and then the guy tells him something. He tells him like part of it, and then he shoots him again. The guy tells him all of it, and then he just shoots him in the head.
Yeah.
And then they kill Marlene. Like, what was up with that? I mean, I understand his. I
don't even think that was the worst part. I think the worst part was the surgeon.
Oh yeah.
Like right in like you find Ellie finally. As long as we're in the spoiler zone, you find Ellie finally, and she's like knocked out from drugs, and like about to get operated on to save the human race, but Joel can't handle that. So like obviously you're playing him, so like you kind of feel if you've ever, I'm going to go ahead and say spoiler alert for Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. If you got to the end of that game,
where you
kill what's her name, Lisa?
No, I can't remember.
You kill the blonde girl.
Yeah.
I don't remember right now. This isn't the game we're talking about, but like right at that point too, like you're the player, so you're sitting there like. But you feel completely helpless, like you can't control what's going on.
Yeah, and they totally like justified that later in 3 that she was like actually. Okay, then I won't say anything. That was close.
Spoiler for me.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
like,
but I know what you mean.
You're powerless, like, and it's the same kind of thing with Joel. There is like you're standing there, you have a gun in your hand, and there's a surgeon who's like, you can't be in here. We're operating, and like you have a gun, and he's holding a scalpel trying to hold you off, and he's just a doctor. Like You've literally killed hundreds of people up until this point.
You don't care.
And yeah, like it doesn't matter. Like you can't leave. You can't turn around and like just walk away. You have to kill the surgeon one way or another. And what I did was I shot him in the head, and like the other surgeons that are in there, the doctors assisting him, like you're a monster. And then you just walk out with Ellie.
What I did was I walked up to him. And there was no prompt or anything. I just walked up, and Joel grabs the knife and stabs him. And so this is one of the things that I was listening to Rooster Teeth's gaming podcast, and they said, should that have been a cinematic instead of a gameplay thing? Because
I don't think so.
People feel like for the gameplay thing, you should have had a choice whether to kill the guy.
I don't think so.
But and I agree with you because
I think it's that feeling of powerlessness.
Yeah.
The same way that they did it in Brotherhood. Like the
Yep.
exact same thing where you are
Well, it
no
was a
longer in
cinematic in
control of
Brotherhood.
this character.
yeah,
Is
and
the point that they're trying to get across.
yeah, but since it was in gameplay, you still had the ability to go, I'm going to shoot this person, I'm going to stab this person, or I'm just going to walk up and take his knife and stab him. It was
Yeah, it
was so
looks-
nonchalant.
Yeah, I just had a thought. Dang it, what was it? It's just like it's showing that like you no longer have control over the character, so it's kind of showing that the character no longer has control over himself.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
I like the strength that like message holds.
And then
Yeah.
at the very end, he just flat out lies.
Yeah,
You know?
which I also don't like, but I see where he's coming from. I'll give him that much.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Because if he had told the truth, she would have left and gone back and like sacrificed herself.
Yep. Even though there were no doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like he replaced his daughter with Ellie
Yep.
in the end.
And the whole time he was just feeling like he's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. He even like didn't take the picture or whatever. And then like when Ellie hands him the picture, he goes in and takes it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so overall, I felt like it was a great game. I loved every second of it. There were some few hiccups as far as combat, but I felt like the combat was really satisfying. I'm just contradicting myself the whole way through this thing, but overall, I'd say it's definitely a buy game. I don't know if I'll go back and play it. I haven't played any multiplayer yet.
There's a new game plus, but
Yeah.
I don't know what it is at all.
Basically, I looked it up. It's basically just like you keep all your upgrades and stuff because there's no way you can get all the pills and weapon upgrades through the first playthrough. So
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah, so that's basically all it is you just keep your stuff. But and that's the other thing I wanted to mention real quick is that all the upgrades, at least from the pill stuff, is all just like convenient stuff. You know,
Yeah,
and not
it's
really
nothing that like the max health was the most useful, arguably, and then the rest of them were.
I felt like the most useful one was the Shivmaster.
I never got it.
Okay, so if you get Shivmaster, if a clicker comes and attacks you, you can use your Shiv real quick and kill it. Or
Yeah.
not, it won't kill it, it'll get it off of you, basically.
Yeah,
And if you upgrade a second time, it'll actually kill it.
because if you didn't do that, if you did not do that, it would just kill you. Like if they
Yep.
got melee range of you and you did not have a melee weapon, they would just kill you immediately.
Yeah, exactly. And and so like with the Shivmaster, the one thing is like even if you get the upgrade to like be able to use more stabs out of a Shiv, it would automatically break anyway. So
really?
So it's like kind of a reward for upgrading this, but still it's not the best option to go with, which was something I liked.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think the upgrades that I ended up going with were like max health. I got completely max health. There were only 2 levels, and I got both of them. And then I got like med pack speed or whatever, like the speed of the healing, because that was really helpful.
I got weapon sway. Weapon sway was one of the ones I got really early.
That was tools, though, wasn't it? That was
No
workbench thing. I thought
No.
I didn't think that was pills.
Yeah, it was pills.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so overall, I really like the game. I think it's worth a buy, and
Absolutely.
At some point, I'll find some time to go play the factions version. The multiplayer game.
Really, really loved the game. I thought it was amazing.
Yep.
Just the storyline. It's one of the greater stories that have been told in a video game in a while now.
And the sales reflect that because it's like the fastest selling PS3 game of 3 weeks or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, so that's about it. And see you later.
Okay.